Okay, so we are talking about, we're going to kind of be digging in today into the two sections that are where our SUTA and SIT are paid from. So the two agencies that are located in Helena that administer our two state taxes are the DOR and the DOLI. Montana DOR, I think we've talked about them a little bit in the past. Which tax do you think they administer? SUTA or SIT? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they do state income tax, right? SIT. And the DOLI, Department of Labor and Industry, they've got a number of different divisions. And one of their divisions is the Unemployment Insurance Division, and they're the group, or the agency that manages SUTA. The DOLI is also where you go, like if you have a wage claim, or you have some sort of concern about employment practices that your employer's engaged in, they handle that whole sort of amalgam of issues around employment. And then the last thing we're going to talk about in this section is our new hire reporting form. I think we have talked about that before, haven't we? The hire reporting form. But I just wanted to do one more reinforcement on that because it's an important part of an important process. So that's sort of an overview. This is our longest section. This will take a couple days to lecture on, and then assignment 2 will be based on this. And assignment 3 will be based on this. Assignment 3 is extra credit. So assignment 2 will be due on Friday. And then assignment 3, which is extra credit, will be due the Monday after Thanksgiving. So that's the 30th, 2nd of December. Wow. That's assignment 3. Yeah. So assignment 2 and assignment 3 go with section 3. Okay. So the first thing, and again, as you well know from having been here for the lecture on Friday, or if you weren't able to attend on Friday, please make sure and go watch the YouTube video. If you were here on Friday, or if you've watched it, you know that basically the way that the section works, or this part of the class works, is I'm just sharing with you documents from source agencies. And so they're not really, it's not like a textbook. It's more like, oh, if you're processing SIT, here's what you use. And this is the most recent update in Montana withholding was in 2015. It doesn't, like federal tax tables can change, honestly, every year or even twice in a year. Our Montana state tax tables and withholding guides don't change very often. So this is about a, 20-page scan. And if I have questions about SIT or how to withhold it or how to deposit it or how to report it or what the rules are, this is where I go. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through this. You're going to use this for a resource. As a reminder, everything, you have access to everything for your final. So you're kind of looking at all this from the mindset of how would I organize myself for the final and what's really important in here that I think I want to reference pretty easily. Okay? So obviously, table of contents, pretty good start, right? So that you can get to wherever you're going pretty quickly. You can see again, we're going to be looking at, in the same that we've looked at with all the taxes, who's exempt from the tax. How do I figure out how much to withhold? Here you see that term supplemental wages, which you should remember. What's my remittance schedule? In other words, how often do I have to deposit? What do I do at the end of the year? What are the penalties if I don't comply? And then just, some sort of ancillary things like getting a power of attorney or closing your account or things like that. So the first thing is going through the exempt wages. Does anybody remember any examples of folks that were exempt from FIT or types of payments that were exempt from FIT? Yeah, like ministers were one of them. You remember any of the other ones? Yeah, ex-patriots, yeah. I think your wages were exempt if you work for the railroad, no, that was FICA, sorry. Meals and entertainment, if it's for the employer's benefit, tuition reimbursement plans, right? There's a laundry list of people and kinds of wages. So it's different for SIT. And you should be conversant with this list. I'm not going to go, read them to you, but you can see, the tribal members, North Dakota residents that have reciprocity that are working in Montana. So there's some different types of exemptions from SIT, which means if this was, if you have tribal members working in the governing tribe of the reservation, for your organization, you're not going to withhold SIT on him or her. So you need to know that. So this is specific to Montana. And then this chart is particularly useful because you can just go down this list and figure out and just, look at it and determine if you've got to withhold SIT or not. For example, like number 20, a deceased worker, when somebody passes away on their final check, you still have to withhold FICA. Can you believe that? Person dies, you're writing the check, it's going to go to their estate, right, or their beneficiaries. You've got to withhold FICA, but you don't withhold FIT or SIT. Well, how would you know that if you don't have a chart? So you have to look up these kinds of things. You do withhold FICA, but you don't have to withhold income taxes. Officials at school amateur athletic events. So I'm running the volleyball games at Sentinel High School, and I've got people coming in to ref them. I've got to withhold SIT on the probably minimum wage that I pay them, I'm sure, to ref. Okay, so here's just, and again, you don't need to know all these, but you need to know where the chart is. So if I ask something really crazy that you're like, oh, I remember seeing that on that chart. Okay. Okay, so nothing unusual here. This is pretty much a laundry list of what we've done with all the taxes. How do I figure out how much to withhold? And some taxes like FICA, that's not super easy, but that's nice because you just know the rate, right? 6.2 and 1.45. Then you have to determine how many withholding allowances they have. So you are going to get that from what document? Yeah, they've given you a W-4, right? There's not a separate W-4 or MW-4. You use the W-4 that they gave you for FIT, and that gives you the same information that you need, or gives you the crossover information that you need to determine their SIT. And then here's that flat 6% for a supplemental wage. And what were examples of that again? I think we used the same 3 examples over and over. Supplemental wages are bonuses. If your commissions are cut separate. Vacation, severance pay, any holiday bonuses where I want to give you a net check, right? Something like that. Supplemental wages, okay, flat 6%, or I can add it onto a regular check and go to the tables. Okay, so if I was giving each of you guys $1,000 for Christmas, I could go do that check separately and withhold a flat 6%, or I could just add it on to your payroll and let the table spit out what your tax is. What's the highest rate for income tax in Montana? In the FIT, it goes from 0 to 37%. In Montana, it goes from 0 to, anybody remember? I think it was 6.9%. 6.9%. So the supplemental wage withholding is kind of on the high end, isn't it, for the whole gamut? Okay, now remittance schedule, that's a fancy term for what we've just been calling deposit schedule all along. And basically, there's a lot of overlap with the feds with one difference. So they do the same thing to determine the withholding or the remittance schedule that the feds do. And that is every November, they pull all of your deposits and your wages for the prior year, and they see how big you are. And if you're not very big, they're not going to make you deposit every couple days, right? If you're medium sized, they're going to want it once a month. And if you're really, really tiny, they're only going to want it once a year. So they basically will tell you right here, if, and so this is, they look back, you don't have to determine this, but if you paid them more than $12,000 in SIT in the last year, they're going to say, hey, you're accelerated. An accelerated remitter for Montana is that exact same schedule that we called semi-weekly for the feds. So if you cut a paycheck Wednesday through Friday, you have to deposit by the next Wednesday. And if you pay Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, you have to deposit by the next Friday. That's what the accelerated schedule is. It's exactly the same. And if you're accelerated for Montana, you're probably going to be accelerated for the feds. So you're just going to make your deposits on the same schedule, basically right after you cut your checks. Okay, so pretty easy. Monthly looks exactly like the Fed too. If you're medium sized, so if you paid between $1,200 and $12,000 in SIT in the last year, your monthly, just go ahead and pay by the 15th of the following month. Again, same, right? No difference here between feds. Or if you're really tiny, then you only have to pay once a year. And you basically send your check in with your MW3 and W2s. Do you remember what an MW3 is? Yeah, it's your cover, your transmittal that goes with your W2s that you file with the state. So your main W2s get like a regular old W3 and go to the Social Security Administration. This is what goes to Montana. Okay, so there's 3 different ways to pay. The old way is over here on the right, where you actually have a payment voucher, right? A coupon, a hard copy coupon that you clip out and you fill in your, and I'll go through this in a second. It's called your SEIN. Okay, you need to get a different number, not an FEIN, but an SEIN, a state employer ID number. And so you fill out your MW1 and you give them your SEIN and how much you owe and send it in. Or you can do a direct transfer, ACH, or you can do basically like a, it's like a e-check or a PayPal. It's like a PayPal system. But you do have to pay, I believe, a percentage point to use that. So most employers, they've gone on, they've set up their bank account to talk directly to the Department of Revenue, and that's that. Then everybody at the end of the year has got responsibilities for MW3 and W2 and 1099s. And it says here that they're due on 2/28, which is true. But since your federal ones are due on 1/31, you just send them in all at the same time. I mean, if you've done them, you've done them. You just submit them. So W2s, obviously, we know what those are. Those are the forms that we fill out for Social Security Administration. The MW3 goes on top.
So why do they do that?
I have no idea. Nobody's going to hold on to their Montana stuff for another 30 days and then risk forgetting about it when everything else is due 1/31. W2s, W3, 9/41, 9/40, your SUTA report. I mean, everything's due then. So I don't know, sort of silly. And then you should be aware of the different kinds of penalties. I've paid late. I've filed late. So go ahead and take a look at that. So managing your Montana account. Before you begin, you'll need the following information. So we're going to take a look at the application. Pretty straightforward. Then of course you can, use the online platform to do whichever you need to do if you move or whatever. There's some very specific things that happen if you change your business name. You actually have to have you need to change that with the Secretary of State as well. If you want to close your account, you need to let them know. Otherwise, they think that you're still active and wondering why you're not filing your returns. And then they get very pokey, like you're going to get letters from them all the time. All right. So that's basically the withholding guide that I pulled off of the DOR website. Okay, so what do you have to do first? First, you have to register with them. This should look pretty standard. We filled out a whole bunch of paperwork so far this semester. Why am I registering? Reason, outline, or item number 1, why am I registering? Number 2, what am I? Am I a C Corp, an LLC, a partnership? What am I? Date when the business was first active. Secretary of State ID. Does anybody remember last week that I told you you had to file with the Secretary of State? If you're incorporated, you have to file articles of incorporation. Trying to form a partnership, you have to file articles, or your partnership agreement, right? If you're trying to become an LLC, what's that called? I think those are called articles of organization. And all these forms, you guys, are just on the Secretary of State website. None of this is rocket science, but back when I used to do like bookkeeping and payroll processing and things like that, people would pay me crazy amounts of money just to fill out this paperwork, right? It's like, it's really just fill in the blank stuff, and it's all online. It's not like I had some magic portal that they couldn't access. So, yeah, just be aware that it's very easy to do and you can do it. So then I need to tell what kind of owners there are and fill out my contact information, blah, blah, blah. And they are going to send me an SEIN, and that's basically that. So now I'm registered. Okay, now I have employees. I give all you guys W-4s. You come to work for me in my new company, right? And I pay you biweekly. So if you're listening at home, you should write this down because I'm going to put it up on the board. We're going to figure out how to find the holding in a couple different situations. And the first situation is Lucinda works for me, and her W-4 says married with 4. And what did I say, bi-weekly? Yeah. I pay her $32,500 a year, and I pay bi-weekly. I want to know how much SIT to withhold. Lucinda it's her W-4 says married with 4. She makes $32,500 annually, and she's paid bi-weekly. What is her SIT withholding? And then in the second situation, she makes $325,000 a year, and she's single with 2. And I pay monthly. What's her SIT? how you're doing using the tables. I'm kind of letting you free fall here. Okay, good. Yeah. Um, let's see. Well, let's put up the Hurricane M4. Yep. 32.5 annual. Paid bi-weekly. And the second one, 32.5 for 325,000. S2, single with 2. That's her annual wage. And she's paid monthly. Okay, so these were the questions that were being posed, right? So let's go back. So what's different between these tables and the federal tables? Right, so there's two differences. One is you don't have to start by taking that table of allowance values. Okay, that's built in. That's one difference. What's the other one? How many tables did we have?
Oh, there's no single.
Yeah, the other ones were single and married, right? Single weekly, married weekly, single biweekly, married biweekly. This is just one table for each kind of pay period. Because with Montana state income tax law, if you're married, you can marry filed separately on the same form. Super unusual. When I first moved here, I'd never heard of that. And I did our first year's tax return, and then I learned about it. And I went back and amended it and got like a $1,500 refund. So you can marry filed separately on Montana, and it's quite beneficial. Okay, so the first question is how much, if she makes $32,500 a year, is she making every paycheck? Anybody? Okay, sorry, let me find this out. Okay, so 32.5 divided by 26, 1250, right? 1250 married with 4 bi-weekly. I'm going to go to the next table, right, because this one's weekly. So I go to bi-weekly. I come down the column that says 4. Where am I at? $1,250. It looks like she's getting 41 bucks. Okay, piece of cake. Next person, 325,000 a year. 12 months. Her checks are $27,083.33 each. She staggers by on that, I'm sure. Okay, single with 2. So I come down this column, and of course you can immediately see what? She's way too high income to be on this table. Oh, and you know what? I stand corrected. I told you 6.9% was the highest rate. It's 6.6. Interesting. Okay, so we're in this column, and she obviously makes $11,000 or more. And so it said, or it says, the amount of her tax is $610 plus the excess, the amount over $11,000. So times 6.6, right? So let me put this guy back on so you can see. So this was the formula that I wrote out based upon what I just looked up in the table. And to make sure to, I know you like to just kind of do it on your calculator, but it's way better if you do it, piece by piece. So I'm going to do the end part of the calculation first. Times 0.066. So that whole thing in there is 1,061.50 plus $610. Yeah? So that's basically it. It's easier than FIT because you don't have this table of allowance values to worry about. And you don't have to make sure single versus married. But you do have to find your table, and you do have to be able to do the calculations on the bottom. Did anybody struggle with that one on the bottom? Do we need to do another one? Okay, great. Yay, team. Alrighty, so those are the tables. So step one, I registered with the Department of Revenue. Step two, I obviously got everybody's W-4s from them and used that to come to the tables. I ran your checks. I took out the money. Now what's the next thing I got to do? Yeah, it's the same steps in all the taxes, right? So now I got to deposit. And remind me again, how many different types of deposits, depositors are there for Montana? Yeah, what are they?
Check, mail, or voucher.
Okay, those are the ways to deposit, which there's also 3. And my question was, what are the state of Montana is going to tell you your deposit schedule, and how many kinds of deposit schedules are they, and what are they? Semi-weekly or monthly, or that is accelerated. Okay, so let's just go over this again because this is kind of a lot. So semi-weekly, what we call semi-weekly for the feds, is what we call accelerated for state, and that is that basically every 3 days, right? Or your monthly, which is the what? Like today is November 18th. If I ran payroll, when would I have to deposit by if I was monthly? 15th of December. And lastly, I could be annual, which means I'm pretty tiny. That's not really an option for the feds. So basically, as Tyler just said, you've got 2 different places that you can go to do online payments. TAP is where you're going to, it's like a PayPal, you're going to do an e-check or a credit or debit card. They're going to take a percentage or tack on a percentage for utilizing the service. ACH, the way that works, I'm sure, do most of you have like something that comes out of your account monthly automatically? And it could be gym dues, it can be your Verizon bill, it can be your, whatever. You give them your bank account number, and then they do a practice run on it to make sure that everything's compatible, and then it just starts zapping out. That's the only problem with that, is if you lose your card or you change accounts, you've got to remember who all to tell that to. And my son and I are running into a problem right now where I was helping pay his gym, monthly gym fees at a gym in Washington, D.C., and then my card got stolen and I got a new account. And I didn't kind of think to do that, and now they've taken him to collection for this back payments on this contract at the gym. And I'm like, you have to call every, you've got to look at your old bank statement from the month before and be like, oh, I had, the Missoulian for my newspaper and Balance Gym in Washington, D.C., and my Verizon bill, and my blah, 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 my insurance premiums, and I've got to call every single one of them and be like, I've got a new account number. So that's the only thing that does kind of suck about it. That had never happened to me before, so I didn't realize that was kind of a big deal. Or you can use the voucher. And on the assignment that I'm going to give you, assignment number 2 that's going to be due next Wednesday, I'm going to actually have you do one of the vouchers just because I don't have any way to have you go on and use the electronic system, even though that's what you would actually do. And then the last thing that you do is at the end of the year, you file your MW3. And it's pretty straightforward. They say right here we can only accept the Montana MW3, not the federal W3, because in addition to doing just basic stuff like being a transmittal, it also reconciles your SIT. So like when we file our 940, that reconciles food at the end of the year. That's what this does for SIT. So you have to do actually the SIT. And here's where you send it. And here's what it looks like. So you fill, you can see what you do. You fill out the tax year, the federal ID number, your SEIN, how often do you deposit, how many W-2s are attached. We don't know any examples when you would be withholding from a 1099, do we? No, and it's super rare, and I'm not going to go into why you would do it because it's just super rare. So basically, they just want to make sure, here's how much SIT I withheld, and here's how much of it I deposited, and really the difference should be 0 unless you're an annual filer, in which case you're going to owe it all. Does that make sense? And then they want to know every single time you made a payroll and how much you withheld and how much you deposited. It's a little overkill. On the assignment I give you, I'm not going to make you do that just because it's busy work. And in all honesty, you're just going to hit a button on your software and it's going to print out. But I want you to be familiar with these forms just in general. So it's like, if you see one at your job or at your company that you're starting, it's not going to be the very first time you've laid eyes on it because they're not scary. Okay, so honestly, I'm going to stop there today. I'm going to pick up with Suda on Wednesday, and we're going to do a little case study together on Wednesday. Assignment 2 will be due on Friday, and we'll go over how to do that on Wednesday as well. Okay? Yeah, have a great week.